Females for the one.
Yeah.
Females for one.
Yeah.
Coming meetings are it's all screwed up.
On this.
So we had a problem with audio, so I'm going to once again advise we are calling this meeting of the Halton Police Board to order for Thursday, the 14th of December, 2023. Mr. Committee Secretary, do you have any regrets today?
Mr. Dallowell has regrets today, Mr. Chair.
And if you're watching, we wish him quick recovery. I know something certainly seems to be going around these days, and we hope that he's back on his feet real soon. Any declarations of conflict or pecuniary interests, members of the board? I am not seeing any, so I am. Computer just decided to. There you go. Before we go into confirmation of the minutes, which is the next matter on the agenda, I just have two quick matters of business I'd like to take care of. The first one is I would like to, first things first and most important first, I'd like to introduce to you Jessica Warren. Jessica Warren will be starting with us officially on January 8th, but she is already go, and she's joining us today as the Communications Advisory Executive Assistant to the Board Chair, and will be facilitating all sorts of the activities of the board. We're very excited to have Jessica on board, and congratulations and welcome to the team. The second matter of business I want to advise is that we want to say a big thank you as a board to the Halton Regional Council. That sort of seems self-serving since I'm a member of the Regional Council, but thank you to me and everybody else on the Halton Council, because yesterday they approved our budget, which was a challenging budget this year because it was 7.5%, and it certainly was a little higher than we had hoped it would be, but it is not for any reason other than increasing the public safety for this community, putting more feet on the street in terms of our terrific team of officers and support staff, and investing in the growth of the Halton region in order to keep up with our excellent public safety record that we have so far. So we're very excited to have that behind us now, and moving into 2024 with adequate funding to do the best job possible for Halton region. So, any comments on that, Mr. Chief?
No, I echo your comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the board for your support on the budget and the Regional Council. Yesterday, there were no questions about the budget. I noticed when they ultimately passed it, and that 9.5% is going to make a pretty critical difference in what we're able to do. There may be some increased expenses coming our way in 2024, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to hire as many of the 49 sworn officers and 24 civilians that we had planned to hire in this budget. And then, pending the outcome of other things, we'll see how close we can get to those numbers. But those additional officers and civilians will be critical to the service in the year ahead.
And I guess the subtext to that is if you're watching this on YouTube and you're interested in policing, then it's a good time to start getting your package together to apply.
Absolutely. It'll be a busy recruiting and training year, that's for sure.
Yeah. Okay, we have our minutes circulated from our meeting on November 30th. What's your pleasure on those? Let me give you a motion to approve them as circulated. Thank you, Jane, and second, thank you very much. Any errors, omissions, or comments? All in favor? Those are carried. Thank you very much. I guess I jumped the gun. We had one presentation. I should have waited. So anyway, welcome again to Jessica. Information items. We have a couple of items that are deemed to be information items because they don't have a specific motion to approve anything other than to provide us with information. So that's why they're on this information agenda, to those who are wondering. Starting with the 3.1, the facilities update. Any comments or questions? Not seeing any.
I'll move it, Mr. Chair.
Okay, moved by Kurt, seconded by? All in favor? That's carried. Secondary employment report for 2023. Any questions, comments?
I have a question.
Go for it.
Mr. Chair. Thank you. When I read this report, it talks about the year 2023, which is passed pretty well.
Almost.
So we're talking about 3 members who are asking for permission to conduct secondary employment in 2023. Why are we doing this in December?
Well, there'll be many more than that who have been approved for secondary employment. This is updating a couple of new ones, but the whole situation around secondary employment has changed greatly over the years. Many, many years ago when I started, there were a number of different types of employment that a sworn police officer in particular could not undertake on the side, so to speak. One of the issues the Halton Regional Police dealt with years ago was, for example, part-time employment at the Ford Motor Company. It was a unionized environment. So there used to be a prohibition about being a member of another trade union. There used to be more conflicts with the workplace. So now it's actually changed probably about 20 years ago to where instead of the individuals having to always ask the chief of police for permission, they now have to ask for permission if they perceive a conflict with that secondary employment. So really, if the individual says, I don't see a conflict, they don't technically have to ask, and we may never know that they have that secondary employment unless it interferes with their position here. So by and large, people in good faith put forward their letters to say, I'm seeking employment to be a part-time flight attendant or accountant because I'm pursuing further education, and we approve those things technically. But it really is just a technical thing that we go through these days.
So the element of unionization isn't prevalent?
No, it's not. Really, it's more conflict-based now.
And so with this, are we approving this for the 3 years to come?
No.
It says the term of approval is 3 years, at which time members continue.
I think we normally do, because otherwise we would be getting, dozens of letters every year, and it would be for the same thing. There's really no reason to do that. We may have temporary as required records personnel who are on their days off working in a retail type of business and sales. Really, they don't even need to ask for permission. So to ask them to do that every year would be not that useful to us or to them.
So we're saying we shouldn't even be receiving this?
No, I think the board, we've always reported to the board, so the board has a sense of the secondary employment issue, but it really isn't the issue that it was 20 or 30 years ago.
Fred would like to contribute something to this.
Yeah. The board is statutorily required to review the chief's approval of secondary employment system. She's reporting it. So it's not, the approval authority is within the chief. The board is reviewing it. It's much like the board is also statutorily required to review the chief's handling of public complaints. Mm-hmm. But the board doesn't have any direct involvement in those. So the board's not approving here.
Yeah. We're just receiving.
Yeah. You're reviewing the chief's handling of secondary employment.
Would we be able to know, are these sworn officers, are these civilians, or do we know that? I mean, I find this a bit vague, frankly. A part-time teacher, an interpreter, and a gas fitter.
I think we've always reported it in that format. We could certainly give the board, I'm not sure from this report who those individuals are. It's similar to, the board reappoints special constables every 2 years. They're required, the board's required to by statute again, as Fred had said. But there really isn't an option to not reappoint those special constables. It's a technicality within the provincial government that the special constables are appointed by the board every 3 or 5 years. But you cannot not reappoint them, and then they would not be members of the service. So they're full-time employees, and it's sort of ironic that their names come before the board periodically when there is no power in that.
I have a question. Are you done with that?
I think Ken wanted to respond.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, just to reiterate that and as Fred pointed out, the approval power is with the chief, and then the chief just has an obligation to report this to the board. So in terms of, again, getting into the granularity of it all, it applies both to uniform members and civilian members. And the only issue is there a conflict of interest in respect to their duties? So if there's no conflict, it's automatic. And as the chief pointed out, there are many positions and many secondary employment opportunities that members enter into that we may not know about because they don't see there's a conflict. So they won't report it to see if the chief agrees.
Just as I read it, it would have been helpful for me to know what their regular full-time work is here. Because this is a bit vague.
Yeah, no, I understand the source of your question. I certainly do. It's, I guess the way that we've been doing these reports and saying what the part-time employment is, for example, part-time teacher, interpreter, gas fitter, whether the individual was a sworn member or a civilian member, those particular roles would not bring that person into conflict with their full-time, whether they were sworn or civilian. So, and we would not, it would be different if we were going to name individuals. That would be an in-camera item as well. So.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ingrid. Kurt, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what I want to be clear on is, like Ingrid or my colleague on the board, I wasn't really clear on the role that these members played within the organization. Perhaps not that would have made a difference. And I understand our role is to review, but if our role to review means that it's not subject to question, then it leaves me empty again, right? So I think we are able to question. I just didn't really understand. I don't see a conflict, but if you don't know who it is and what the role of the individual is in the organization, it's a little more difficult to try and figure out. That's all.
I mean, we could, for example, in this report, updating on these three members, we could say, uniform or civilian, and no conflict, if that would be helpful.
I think that would help me, Chief. Thank you.
So before I go to Fred, I want to actually ask Fred a question. So the requirement is, from what I'm hearing, is to have a policy on this issue. If we have a specific policy, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, then if we had a specific policy which basically doesn't require reporting out to the board on a regular basis, because I'm not sure what we can, honestly, I'm not sure what we do with this report.
Yeah.
So can we create the policy so that the chief who has the statutory right to approve this, he can just do this with our blessing, or maybe you could explain the rationale if we actually have to have the information provided to us?
Well, the statutory requirement is for the board to review the appointments of approvals for secondary employment.
Okay.
It doesn't say how the board does that. I haven't had a chance to look at board policy because I wasn't anticipating these questions because we've been getting these reports for years. But I suspect that the board has been silent on its expectations in the past. Policy is the primary way that the board speaks to the service, other than the strategic plan. So really, the issue here is back to the board to articulate what it wants reported and when, and put that on the to-do list, especially if there's a motion, and I'll work with management to make sure that it's actually achievable from a reporting perspective for management without undue disclosures or undue effort to make that report. And we can have the discussion separately about is it the individuals, the types of jobs, or is the board more interested in is it process the chief goes through to make the approvals. So there's different ways of approaching it. Right now, I think it's silent, like a lot of our legacy policies. The board's expectations are silent. So this is how the management's interpreted it and reported it. And again, I'm hearing that there's an interest in making this reporting system more from a governance perspective.
We'll come back to see if there's a motion at hand before long. I'm going to go with Clark next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am prepared to make that motion and ask the clerk to see what he can draft up. But I think we should also check in with our own legal boards, with the legal side of the board, and get our own advice as to what action needs to be in that as well for when the policy is being developed. Just to cover that part off.
Okay. So let's try to craft that motion that you want to make then, Clark, and make sure that we're cognizant of the fact that we've currently got Fred loaded up for several months on other work at the moment. So let's make sure the expectations are set so that we're not expecting it in the next meeting or two. So my interpretation is that there's a desire to review, I guess, our policy or lack thereof, and to determine make recommendations on how we should move forward. Is that roughly what we want to do here? Does that sound good to you, Clark? Can you interpret what I just said, Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, I just have it as that a policy be developed regarding reporting of secondary employment to the board.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a seconder to that motion? Thank you. No, you moved it, Ingrid. Oh, sorry, Clark moved it. You can second it. Thank you. Thank you. Is there any further discussion on this? There doesn't seem to be. Oh, Chief.
I mean, maybe it's really quite a simple process. I mean, most of the individuals who send a letter in and ask for permission, they will clearly say, you know, this will not interfere with my normal work hours. It's not a conflict. It's a chance to earn a little bit of secondary income to afford whatever family expenses are. I think right now I can only remember one request that I turned down in the last 12 years. And that was an accident reconstructionist specialist who deals with our fatal motor vehicle collisions and things. And there was a law firm that wanted to employ that person outside of work to review accidents. No, that's a conflict. That's the only time in 12 years that I can remember off the top of my head that we said no. There was one that was a fraud investigator related to something with an insurance company. I think that's the only two in 12 years. So then again, when we develop whatever process the board wants, there is also no role for the board to play in approving those requests. So it's really a review of policy and a review of
Compliance with
process that takes place.
Compliance with.
Just trying to save Fred as much work as I can.
The CGO acknowledges your work management.
There's a bylaw, I believe.
I don't expect that. I can understand why Ingrid raised this. I mean, we're presented with this report for information that doesn't have really much actual information. So do we even need it truly? If it's a delegated authority to the chief. So in some ways, the outcome will be to determine what we really need, which will inform our agenda, but it will also inform, your staff's agenda in terms of reporting it out. So let's just find out what the realities are on this and what we actually need. Okay, let's move on then.
Mr. Chair, if I could, that's why I asked about the legal opinion, that if we could, to see what we have to do, because as we're all interested in being transparent. So if it's something that is delegated authority and we don't need to have come to the board, right, we can find out that from having it from a legal opinion on it.
Okay. Can I leave it outside of the motion and let Fred make that determination if we actually, because it may be very black and white, he doesn't actually need to expend money on lawyers, no offense, Ken. And we can go forward with whatever that process is. Thank you. Good call. Item 3.3 is the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Any comments, questions on that? Okay.
I have a comment, Mr. Chair. I see here that there are 38 organizations involved. That's a significant number of organizations, and I certainly applaud all of the effort that goes into this. I'm just trying to get a bit of an idea of the 38 organizations. Is that 9 or 10 organizations replicated across a number of communities? Or is it 38 independent organizations, which is just a big number, hard to kind of understand?
So through the chair, when we started the situation table model in 2013, we had 7. We grew to 12 and then into 20s, and we've identified a number of community human service providers that do a unique role. So these are actually unique organizations that can actually take away work. So it just shows the collaborative nature of how we're mitigating risk in our communities.
Thank you for that, Deputy Wilkie. The other thing that I wanted to comment on is, this I think is a tremendous opportunity to carry on with this work. But I'm also pleased to see that it's being replicated in other parts of the country to some extent, which I think is a tremendous effort again. Nice to know that it somehow started here. Thank you. Those are my comments, Mr. Chair.
I think just to give credit where credit's due, I think it actually started in Churchill, or is it Brandon?
Prince Albert.
Prince Albert, thank you. It was Chief McPhee, correct? That was the initiator behind this? But I think we were the first in Ontario.
2011, and we were, I think, the second to mobilize in Ontario, but the first to launch at a regional level.
Okay.
Yeah, Chief McPhee is quite the exceptional leader on this. I remember hearing from him long before we got into it at an AMO conference, and in awe of what they were able to achieve in a very troubled community. Some of the stories that he was able to relay at that meeting were incredible, what they were able to accomplish. And I can say that, from both my hats here and the hat at the regional council, the stories are incredible as to what are able to be achieved by working together, which is the end goal here.
And Dale has moved now to be a larger troubled community in Edmonton. That's quite a bit of work to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Would you mind moving it for me then? Be received. Thank you. It's been moved to be received. Is there a seconder to that? Thank you, Lisa. All in favor? That's carried. Now, I know, I'm sorry, I should have mentioned this before we took the vote, but we've had presentations to the board on CSWB in the past. Is this something that, because we have a number of new board members, it may be time to refresh that for the board so they understand the nature of this and the implications of this incredible program? Chief, or Deputy?
So to the chair, there is a commitment by the board and the region to present to council and the board on an annual basis, and that report is generally done in the first quarter of the year, and it's a summary of the year snapshot of not only our situation table model, but the priorities that are embedded. So that's part of it. In that dashboard report that you just approved, there's a link at the bottom, and it's an FAQs that we just developed as a steering committee, and I can tell you that there's a lot of great information, especially for our newer board members, to understand the system of how risks get to the table and how they are taken away by the best organization positioned to deal with the matter. So I think if the board wishes any more information on that, we can certainly prepare it, but the fulsome report to the board and regional council is designed to be the same document so that not one organization is getting a better report or presentation.
When is that expected?
I think it's Q1, done through Alex Sarchuk and myself.
Terrific. Chief.
And often at the larger CSW meetings, either yourself and Fred or both attend those. I know Fred was on the last call, I believe, of the senior leadership team of that, and then we receive reports from different agencies and organizations on the very detailed work they're doing, for example, on homeless and creating housing and a variety of different reports. So it's good for the board to have that connection as well.
Thank you all. Thanks for raising it, Kurt. Moving on to recommendation reports, we start with 4.1, the Safety Village ground lease with Halton Region and sublease with the Options Club of Oakville. Any comments, questions? Kurt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I read this with a lot of interest, and really where I'm stuck a little bit is trying to get my mind around the shifting of liability from the region to us, I guess, the board. And I don't know enough, and I guess we cover that risk through insurance. And I know insurance is discussed here, but I don't know enough about the activity, well, the full nature of the activity that occurs in the safety village to get my head around whether or not we're actually adequately covering the risk. Like, I don't know if there's 50 people that go there at a time, or I don't know how large the Optimist Club involvement would be. I'm not against that. I think that may be a great idea. So my interest is really in further understanding how the liability is being dealt with, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so just for clarification on your question, so we can get the right resources, are you referring to the liability as it pertains to the Safety Village program and the children coming in the programs administered by the service, or are you referring to the land lease, sublease between the Optimist Club and the service?
I think all of it, to tell you the truth, because the liability that once was the region's liability, if I understand properly, is now being pushed to the board, is what I understand, if I'm understanding it right, and I might not be. And I'm just concerned about whether or not we're satisfied as a board that that is being dealt with adequately, and that any risks associated with it are being dealt with adequately, whether it's a safety village or the Optimist Club.
Okay.
Because they're all people that, in one way or another, we make the liability of.
So let's get you an answer. Chief, who would you suggest this be deferred to?
Certainly Ken has been involved in this for a long, long time, before the recent events and history of redeveloping this plan to work with the Optimist. So Ken?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of liability, the region and the board share the same insurance policy, always have the same insurers. The reason for the execution of a ground lease really was to allow the board and the service to formalize their relationship with the Optimist Club. The Optimist Club essentially had been using the basement of the building at the Safety Village as their clubhouse for many, many, many years. They had made significant contributions, financial contributions to the Safety Village, and had been involved quite a lot in terms of the actual construction of that building. So, because I think there's a desire now to of the service to perhaps expand some of the programs that were being offered there. Right now, it's really bicycle and traffic safety. To expand their programs, we thought we would, at the same time, formalize the relationship with the Optimist Club, because the region of Halton itself hadn't been and their staff hadn't been dealing directly with the Optimist Club. The decision was made that the board would enter into the sublease. So the ground lease sort of sets the foundation. The sublease now creates a more formal relationship with the Optimist Club and sets out what areas of the safety village they will use, occupy, and perhaps improve.
And provide insurance for as well.
Sorry?
Are they required to provide insurance?
Yes. Okay.
May I ask a question? Is who required to?
The Optimist Club.
The Optimist Club has provided us with a certificate of insurance.
And do we sit in judgment? Who sits in judgment of the adequacy of that insurance policy? I mean, just being devil's advocate, assuming the basement collapsed, who said, which likely wouldn't happen? You know, at one level, the region is saying they want to be absolved of liability. Quite frankly, I don't know how that can happen.
Well, and through you, Mr. Chairman, I think the message is that they're not absolving themselves of liability. Because, as I said, we share the same insurance policy. So if there was ever a claim, it sits on region lands, and consequently they would have joined in several liability with the board and, you know, in certain circumstances, the Optimist Club.
And are you, if I may, are you of the opinion that the insurance policy, like, is the insurance adequate?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers my question, Mr.
Thanks, Kurt. Jean?
Yes, thanks, Chair. I just wondered, when you look at the consultations, there isn't anybody from the Optimist Club on there. So were they consulted, or what was the story with that?
Certainly. Certainly. My apologies if that was inadequate, but no, we had extensive meetings with members of the board of directors and other individuals who have been associated with the Optimist Club, and together we set out the various terms and conditions.
Very good, Jean?
Yes.
Thank you. Further questions or comments? Before I take the vote, I do want to say that I'm super excited to see the kids are back. It's been a long time since the Safety Village has been in operation, mostly shut down, I think, because of COVID. And it's been a few years getting it back in operation. I've driven by a couple times now. And my grandson went through a couple weeks ago, one of my grandsons, and he had a blast. So I'm so pleased it's back. It was a tradition, almost a rite of passage of Halton children to actually go through that program. It's certainly a memory they keep for a long time, and make all their parents buy one of those little motorized cars as a result. So I hope that we have shares in that car company. With that, I'll look for, since you raised it, do you mind moving the approval? Thank you. Moved by Kurt, seconded by Jane. Thank you very much. Further comments or questions? All in favor? That's approved. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to 4.2. This is Motorola Solutions Limited tendering for public mobile radios.
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
Moved. Is there a seconder? Jane, thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions on this? Lisa?
Sure, just a brief one. So I recognize that it is a sole source, but I'm just wondering, how are we communicating or reviewing and assessing any deviations from the standard corporate terms and conditions? So sole source, of course, means that there's one provider, one price, but what about the compliance to our terms and conditions?
Ken may have...
Material deviation?
Yeah, Ken or Paul may have more technical answers to that, but we've had our Motorola P25 encrypted radio system here for a number of years, dating back to my return here in 2012. So our whole system for the police service, radio-based system, voice system, is Motorola and has been for many, many years. And that also supports, to some degree, some of our local agencies, fire departments and others. So there's only, I believe, one other main radio provider in the police sector these days. Harris, I think, is one other company. But of course, the portable radios or mobile radios that we have to integrate into the system need to be the same company.
Right, so I understand that from a technical lens. I think I'm asking more from a corporate policy lens. So in terms of our standard terms and conditions, are they upheld when we're doing sole sourcing? Or is there a deviation that we should know about?
I mean, in relation to the board's procurement bylaw, I think I pointed out before, there's always a risk when we proceed with a sole source. However, taking into account all the factors here, that we have a Motorola system and compatibility with that system is a paramount consideration. It would be my staff that was an appropriate risk.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Further questions? Is this part of the Halton Purchasing Group program, or is this something we do entirely separate? Paul?
Yep. Through you, Mr. Chair, it was previously, when the P25 system was first installed, there was a PCPG contract for all the equipment. It expired in October 2020, I believe, and so we've been single sourcing since.
Okay. But it's obviously important that we maintain that coordination, because the P25 system isn't just for us, as Chief pointed out. It's for literally every service, municipal service in Halton region. So, is there a reason? So we went sole source. What's happened with the Halton purchasing group in terms of this issue?
The original contract for it expired, so the other partners that are in there either haven't had to replace their radios or equipment yet, or they themselves have been single sourcing. I don't have the answer to that.
I'm wondering if there's a value to have a communication about that and see if there's a way to save some money as a result of getting back. Because that's the whole nature of the purchasing group, was to actually reduce our costs.
Correct.
Is that something that can be explored?
Sure, it doesn't tie us to any responsibility or liability for costs, but I can get an update for you. My guess would be is their use of the radio system in terms of the mobile radios is much less overloaded or heavy than ours would be, so their frontline equipment is probably lasting a lot longer than ours.
Even fire.
That would be my guess, but I can follow up.
Yeah, it'd be good to follow up. Sure. If there's a way to save a few bucks. Let's stretch that 7.5 as far as we can. Further comments or questions? I heard you make a motion to approve this, I believe. Is that correct? You didn't? Can I get a motion to approve this purchase, please? Thank you, Jane, seconded by Lisa. Thank you very much. Further comments or questions? I think I already said that. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, similar, the uninterruptible power supply battery replacement at headquarters. Any comments or questions? It's a move by Kurt. Is there a seconder for that? Ingrid. Comments or questions? Okay. I do have one quick question. In the same line of questioning, UPS systems, I wasn't aware that they're sort of as tied to the manufacturer. Wouldn't this be something that could be put out for public tender, or is this, again, is this hardware specific? I don't know if I'm articulating myself correctly, but I'm just curious why this one is sole source. I understand P25, it's a specific technology, same with our LTE, et cetera, but with UPS, I just was surprised to see that that's not a competition.
This is more Mike McMullen's area of expertise, I think.
I've already saw his hand go up, so.
I made through the chair. This is really a risk management decision. So because the UPS at headquarters backs up our data center, and the risks associated with losing power in our data center, we don't want to deviate from the OEM manufacturer and their qualified technicians. In theory, yes, absolutely, competitively bid. What we risk is potentially bringing in somebody that may not have the training specific to the type of unit that we have installed here. And risk of failure is where we're trying to mitigate. This is quite a large undertaking for us. Like, there's going to be some significant coordination between both the facilities department and the IT department to prepare for the battery replacement, because when the batteries are being replaced, we lose protection. So if we have a utility fault, anything of that sort, during that time, we have exposure. So
makes sense.
It totally comes down to risk management.
Sure, it makes sense. I wanted to ask that question. And I guess, in your response, it just tweaked my mind that this is a replacement of batteries within existing hardware. So that's where the OEM piece comes in.
Exactly. And if I may just add to that, so for our other locations, we have UPS systems at all our major facilities. We do competitively bid that work.
Okay.
And again, the risk is lower within those district facilities, that if we were to lose some power, it's not as operationally impacted.
Understood. Thank you. The motion's been made to approve this purchase. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, we come to everybody's favorite portion of the meeting, the operational verbal updates. Members of the team.
There's one more.
You're right. I got a reflection in my thank you. 4.4. Once again, similar to last time, purchasing item. Is there any comments or questions on this?
Sorry, just back to the same question. So again, I understand that these are technology-based, single source. The risk for the organization is to mitigate interruption and to maintain a standard of product familiarity, et cetera. I understand those. I don't want to talk about any technical matters. Compliance to the actual procurement contract based on procurement contract terms and conditions, liability, indemnification, et cetera, warranties, are those in line with our corporate policy, or are there major deviations we need to know about?
There's no,
To the chair, there's no other provider for this product.
Okay, let me be more clear. So oftentimes with like IT contracts or services software, they'll hold you to their terms and conditions, which are usually tons of pages long. Even Apple, when you sign on to Apple, you're beholden to their terms and conditions. Are we signing off on the vendor's terms and conditions carte blanche, or are we doing a negotiation for our own corporate terms and conditions to bring them closer to what we want to see?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I mean, each and every time a contract comes between the service and an outside vendor, we will review their terms and conditions, standard terms and conditions, and compare them to ours. In the case of Axon and its supply and manufacture of the CEWs, there are a number of standard terms that are unique to their lease program, but they don't deviate in any way, shape, or form from our standard conditions, and they need to be accepted.
Okay, thank you for that answer.
So further comments or questions? So I have one request, but before I make that request, I just want to correct myself. I had said 7.5% budget increase to 9.5. I guess I was just hopeful in my mind that could be, anyway, I just want to put that on the record. It was a 9.5% budget increase, which speaks once again to the wonderful support we have from regional council to understand the need to achieve that. So I apologize for misspeaking that earlier. But that's a great segue into this. One of the conversations we had during our budget process and our workshops was this change from ownership to leasing. And because this is a significant change, I believe this is the first time we've signed a lease contract. Perhaps somebody could just walk us through very briefly why the change and what value it brings to the organization.
And I can certainly comment on that, or we have Inspector Bradley in charge of expanding our training area. That's done a lot of the research on it. Go ahead, Trevor.
Absolutely. Through the chair, we did an analysis of the cost of tasers over the sort of the lifespan we've had the Taser X2, and sort of compared that to the projected, or actually the fixed cost with this program, the lease program. Obviously, there's a monetary benefit to going with the lease program. We know what we're paying over the term, the 5-year term. Not to mention, we've seen a significant increase when it comes to ownership and procuring new tasers. So there's obvious financial benefit to it. One other add-on to this program is we get double the amount of training cartridges associated to the new taser platform, additional training for our instructors, equipment and integration with our simulator, our feature simulator that we have within our training bureau. So a number of benefits are there, and we've also found that even ownership of the tasers in particular, the X2s, in terms of an asset, we can't sell those, we can't move those on or recover any value out of them. So it was a relatively simple process in terms of identifying this as the way to go, which is why we proposed it as such.
Deputy Hill?
The other component to this is that, as you see, the taser evolutions they're constantly upgrading. So where the taser, the one that we have now is not going to be serviced, the one that we're even talking about leasing now will likely go down the same road through the lease versus own. We will get the newest evolution. So they're looking at a Taser 10 already that isn't available to anybody yet. But when it does become available through lease, we will get the latest technology as opposed to being stuck with old technology and going through the cycle of trying to catch up over and over again.
Chief. And standard good business practices that the current chair of the board have the experience of the new taser. So whenever you're ready, we will show it.
I believe Inspector Bradley has a taser right now.
I will nominate Deputy Hill.
It'll mess up my hair.
So I guess that it sounds like it was a well thought out, both strategic deployment as well as financial. Maybe if somebody could speak to the finances a little bit, because it's a big commitment. I'm just
Yeah, no, and thanks to Inspector Bradley and his team that did the research and this, and actually deliver it to our frontline officers. It's a tremendous tool for our frontline officers. There's no doubt that it's prevented a lot of injuries to officers and, in fact, to people that are being taken into custody with minimal use of force in a lot of those situations. It's a very temporary situation that they experience, and then they're back to normal health and arrests or whatever can carry on in that way. The cost is similar both ways, but there is a substantial savings on the cartridges, and there's an element of that where every officer, I believe, has to fire 2 cartridges each year during their use of force training. In the purchase model, there's a fair expense to that. In the lease model, they're included. So that's one consideration. The other is if there is breakage or one of the devices goes down or is inoperable, they're replaced. There's an evergreening type of component to that. And if it, as Axon develops, and they certainly are a leading company in a number of different areas, there will be other future tasers with further enhancements and things, and then there's an opportunity to roll into those as we go. So I think there's considerable benefit to leasing in this case over buying.
Thank you for that. I know businesses go through that discussion all the time when it comes to the decision between leasing and buying things. So I'm pleased to hear that all the benefits and disadvantages were seriously considered. So thank you to all that responded to that for us. I believe it was seen so long ago now. Was there a motion already? Did somebody move that one? Did you move that, Kurt? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the purchase? Thank you, Ingrid. Seconded by Jane. Thank you very much. Last call for comments or questions. All in favor? That's carried. Now, favorite part of the meeting, operational verbal updates. Please.
Update the camera slate.
Do we do it again? More in camera.
Okay. Okay, so moving along to action registry, Mr. CGO, what do we have?
First item is an updated HR policy, which is scheduled sometime next year as part of a much broader, huge policy review, driven in part by the new Police Act. The quality assurance report is scheduled for a year from now. That's a new requirement of the board, which we expect the board to assign that responsibility in April. It'll take a few months.
You mean it's a new responsibility of the Act?
The new Act is requiring that the board have its own quality assurance program. That's a new requirement. And we expect that new Act to come into force in April. So with it, a regulation, and likely, and the regulation will drive the policy. Sure. And we'll flush out the details. March, we have scheduled a presentation on the recruiting process. Right?
We can. I don't think we firmed up that date, but we can.
It's on there. It's on the calendar now for March. It's one of those things that's been languishing.
I think it'd be good if we can get it in March, because recruitment's going to be a big issue in 2024. I think the board would like to get their heads around the whole budget. Yeah. Thank you.
As well as a presentation from Dr. Perry is also scheduled for March, and the EDI report card. Then there's services already responded a bunch to the budget workshop questions, and we'll be updating that after this meeting. Just received those last night.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Chief.
We have a second opportunity at operational verbal updates.
Sure.
We rethought one.
Okay.
It's not appropriate for in camera, so.
So actually, give me 1 second. I just want to let me just dispose of this matter, then we'll come right back to you. Any comments or questions on the action registry? Kurt?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to go back to the first one, the HR policy update. That's been sitting in there now approaching 2 years.
It has.
And I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can get a little more precise, either that or refresh the dates or something. When I look at it, I kind of wonder, well, did we really know what we were asking for 2 years ago because we haven't got it yet?
Well, we did adopt two policies in the last 4 years on HR. This one's almost constant recurring. In particular, I can put it there February for that one aspect, probably. March at the latest. But the whole HR policy needs a major rework, and I think some of it may be tied to the adequacy standards.
So do we want to update the date? That's all I'm just wondering. It just seems a bit stale to me. That's my own comment, Mr. Chair.
Any suggestions on that, or?
Well, either that or is it an ongoing?
I've been trying to move some of that, package some of that stuff with all the other moving parts, but if this is important to you, I can knock that one item off and then revisit it when the other pieces are done.
When would you suggest that would be?
I'll say March.
March work for you?
No, well, I'm happy with that if the board is okay with that, yes.
Okay. Further comments or questions on the action registry? Can I get a motion to, I guess it's Graham, help me, is it receive or approve?
Board's pleasure.
Okay, so because we've just amended it, we're going to approve it because we're amending the date on the first one to March 2024. So motion to approve the action registry is circulated. Kurt, and seconded by Ingrid. Thank you all in favor. That carried. Okay, rewind the tape to verbal updates.
I apologize. Whenever I think of homicide, my brain goes straight to secret squirrel right off the bat, but this isn't appropriate for in-camera. So you might have seen the news release, and it'll take you back to February of 2021, where we had an explosion in Georgetown and two people, Andre and Christina Rirak, murdered. We charged a person at that time named Harrison Brown. And in a very rare occasion in the last little while, and Inspector Bradley was in charge of the case when this happened, we received a guilty plea for first-degree murder, which is very, very rare. And I bring it up because the guilty plea, and I know some of our members were in court, the incredible job that our homicide team did in this file, the evidence that they were able to get was just absolutely overwhelming. And that was, I can tell you some of you heard me talk about this file before, some just incredible good heads-up decisions in the beginning that uncovered some incredible evidence that would have, if we hadn't gotten it, would have changed maybe the course of this file. But through the interviews, through all the evidence they got, it's just the person obviously felt they had no options across the guilty plea. So I just wanted to mention that just because it was just a great job by the team.
Yeah, we were very fortunate to have 21 of the primary investigators over here at headquarters just the other day to recognize them, but there were over 40 investigators involved in that file. I just want to mention that, not just because of the great quality of the work that they did, but because of the changes that are coming to the homicide area in the new budget with the 9.5%.
9.5.
We definitely need those resources. When those investigations are so human resource intensive, but fantastic results. And guilty pleas these days for serious crimes is almost unheard of. So
well, they save us a lot of money as well. They do staffing resources. Yeah. Did the plea happen right at the outset of the trial, or did they get into it, or?
No, 2021 just happened the other day. So.
But when did the trial start?
Oh, it's been a long. He's been in custody since 2020.
Wow.
I think what he means is they went into court and the guilty plea was then, as opposed to...
Yeah, but I mean, it took a lot of time.
I understand that. I understand the judicial process with...
yeah, the trial hadn't begun.
Had not begun. Okay. Okay. Well, then we definitely saved resources and justice was done. Terrific. Thank you.
I think the point here, Mr. Chair, is that it's a testament to the strength of the evidence that was gathered during the course of the investigation, which led to this outcome.
Overwhelming them with boxes and boxes of evidence, I guess, or reams of evidence. Thank you. Anything further on verbal updates, or once I've closed it this time, it's done? Okay.
I will take a moment just to acknowledge the incredible work of our sworn civilian members in our Regional Community Mobilization Bureau for the Miracle on Main event. You've seen to the Tiger Jeep Thing Foundation, there's a lot of play on social media circles, but there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes throughout November and December, and to this day, our members continue to drop off toys to families in need, Salvation Army and so forth. So I don't think we see that narrative kind of strung through some of the social media pieces, but there's a lot of people that do a lot of lifting, and I just want to acknowledge that on top of their everyday job, these people are contributing to our communities, and we need to thank them for their time, especially at this time of year.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Chief?
And it's probably, I would guess, over $1 million, again, worth of toys and things collected for the kids in the hospitals. But I attended the event again this year. There were thousands of people there. I think it's probably the second biggest event in Halton, next to the Waterfront Festival in Burlington. It's the whole Main Street was packed with people, packed with kids, petting zoos and all sorts of things on that Main Street. It really is a great event, and no issues with it at all from a policing perspective, which is nice. So it's a credit to the Singh family, one of whom is a member of ours in a sworn capacity, but it was a great event.
Great, congratulations, well done. Any more questions from the board? Okay, I don't see any, so we'll move on. We have our public information, sorry, we did that one already. Correspondence, has there any correspondence received? Anything exciting in the Trust? Okay, so we will be momentarily moving on to closed session. But before we do that, I just a couple quick things I'd like to raise. First of all, for those who are watching in public, you will sometimes wonder why our meetings can vary in public between 15 minutes to an hour, sometimes a couple hours, and that's because a number of our items are dealt with in closed session for confidentiality reasons, negotiations, legal advice, etc. My goal in 2024 is to change the paradigm a little bit, and that is, instead of assuming things go in closed session, we need to assume that things are in public session unless they can be demonstrated otherwise. To enhance our commitment to transparency as a board, we are going to attempt to basically test every agenda item that we put forward to determine whether it really has to be in closed session. I'm not suggesting that we haven't done that, but we're going to make a more concerted effort. And thanks to our new staffing increase in our office from 0 to 1 full-time staff, we will have more resources to be able to really help in that analysis. So that's just a bit of a heads up for 2024. And the other thing I want to say is, before we sign off in the public session, this is our last meeting of the year. I want to extend our thanks, the board's thanks to all of you, our staff team, for the fantastic work in 2023. Our best wishes to all of you and your families for a safe and happy holiday and Christmas season. And those members of the public who are watching us on YouTube, either live or in replay, thank you for your interest in the activities of the Halton Police Board. We appreciate you keeping in touch with us through our new commitment to stream meetings and more communications to the public. And you're going to see even more of that next year as Jessica gets herself situated in the office and working hard at cranking out as much information to the public so that we can commit ourselves to that transparency and deliver on it every single month. So with that, thank you, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I'll look for a motion to move into closed session. Over here, Jane, and over here, Lisa, thank you. All in favor? That carries. So it's now 10:02. Let's reconvene at 10:15 in a session closed to the public. Thanks, everybody. Oh, I guess I should call the vote. All in favor? There we go. 10:15 to reset.